Hey guys, Coach Patrick here, your weight loss coach, nutritionist, and personal trainer. Welcome to my YouTube channel. For all those that are joining me and you're new to the channel, make sure to follow me on social media at Coach Patrick Liu for more tips like this. Today we have a special guest. We have Dr. Kamilah joining in all the way from Chicago. She is an expert on reversing chronic diseases, and she serves her clients really, really well. And she's here dedicating her afternoon to join us and share with us some tips, some strategies. And I think all of you guys can benefit from having Kamilah on our show today. So, Dr. Kamilah, welcome in. We're very, very happy to have you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. I'm excited.
Awesome, awesome. So I have a lot of questions that I want to ask you, but starting off, you're an expert in holistic health, and so for our audience that are listening over here, and even for your audience as well, like what is your approach to holistic health, and especially the connection between like body, mind, and soul?
Absolutely. So I tend to make sure that I work congruently with all three of those different aspects because they work very closely together. I have a high understanding for the concept of neuroplasticity. And so neuroplasticity is this idea that the brain can change. And a lot of times the control center for that is the mind. And a lot of times we stop there at the brain. I understand that if the brain can change, then the body can change because there's a lot of communication that happens between the brain and the body. And so I get them all to work together. And I also bring in this concept of the soul. And the reason why is because I believe that that's the place of a person's identity. And a lot of times outside of your identity, you really can't outperform your identity. So I have to bring in that concept because a lot of people can't prosper or overcome their obstacles outside of making sure that they prosper in the person who they are. And so I kind of bring all three of those aspects together and I work with all three of them because it matters. It's a good principle to use when someone is like, dealing with reversing chronic disease and overcoming some of the problems that they're having. And so I just always tend to make sure, and I probably actually operate in helping people with their mental health a lot more, even than their physical health, just because of, again, the connection that plays a role in it. And so yeah, I tend to take that avenue because it is, I think, the most successful avenue if you can include mind, body, and soul in on the healing process.
Absolutely, absolutely. Identity is huge, right? Like I often
Oh
make
yeah,
the analogy, especially to my clients and my audience. It's kind of like a caterpillar trying to transform into a butterfly, right?
oh yeah,
If a caterpillar sees itself as a butterfly, but it's actually a caterpillar and jumps off the branch, what's going to happen? They're going to die, right? If
right, right,
a butterfly sees itself as a caterpillar, what's going to happen, right? They're not going to be able to fly, right? And in order
right,
for
right.
a caterpillar to transform into a butterfly, it has to go through a process, has to go through a
Yeah.
transformation. We call that the cocoon, right? When you're
Oh yeah,
cocooned, when a caterpillar is trapped in a cocoon, it's like, why am I stuck in these walls? Why are there
right.
so many boundaries and restrictions and I can't go out and do all these things? It's
Oh
because
yeah,
during that process, transformation is happening, right? And it takes time.
yeah,
And when
yeah,
you're done that transformation process, guess what happens? You shift into a new identity. You become a butterfly,
yeah,
right? So I love what you said about identity and transformation and how it starts there. That's really
yeah.
really important.
I
Um,
always tell people also, like, when they're setting their goals, like it's good to have these goals, but the accomplishment isn't really accomplishing the goal. It's who you become as you're accomplishing the goal. And so the same person who sets the goal is not the same person who accomplishes the goal. And so you're after that becoming stage. And so yeah, that identity piece is very, very important because outside of that, the results that a lot of people make, they're not sustainable, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Yeah.
speaking of sustainability, people, for me and you, I think like they go on diets all the time, right? Fad diets, the latest,
Yeah.
you know, trending diet, and then yeah, they see some results short term, but then as soon as they finish the diet, they go back to a regular way of eating and living, and then chronic disease comes back in. They gain
Yeah.
the weight back, right?
Yeah.
And so, what is your concept about diets, and what do you think about some of crazy fad diets out there, like specifically like the starvation diet.
Yeah. I look at diet sometimes as a very, very short term fix. Like, honestly, somebody who wants to, get in a dress that they want to fit for their wedding or, something like that. But my approach is really like a lifestyle change. And so when it comes to like the fad diets, they can work, but they work temporarily depending on the person. So what I really try to do is I believe in the concept of bio individuality, meaning that there's not one thing that works for everybody. You have to understand your body. There's a difference with how people's bodies respond to certain diets based upon their age, the gender, their stress levels, their career, their genetic dispositions. There's just a lot of different things. Where they live, do they live in states that have a lot more sun than other states? Do they have access to organic foods or not? Like, there's a lot that happens. There's a lot of different variables. And so I really try to get people to concentrate on paying attention to their body and making sure like that when they go on these particular diets, or I don't even like to use the word diet a lot of times, but like their eating regimen, that is something that can outside of a short-term fix. And that there are moments that people really need that, especially if they're like super overweight, where they need to like drop some of this fat off and make sure that their like body is like coming back to homeostasis. But as far as like living out the rest of their life, they need to figure out something that actually works for where they are. And even one person can have something that works for them in their 30s that don't work for them no longer in their 40s. If they wind up with a food allergy or something, they have to start to shift a lot of that. And just as an example, I was talking to somebody the other day, and she was a nice size, but she wanted to gain muscle mass, but she instead gained like 10, 12 pounds of fat. And so she was a little
That's not
disappointed,
good.
even though she looked great. But she went from like 132 to like 145, but that 145 was not muscle mass, it was fat. And I asked her, show me what you're eating. And so when she showed me what she was eating and how many times a day she was eating, I giggled and I said, this looks like the eating regimen of like a 220-pound muscular man that
Oh
has
my
muscle
goodness.
mass,
Yeah.
and it was like I told her, I said, all of the carbs and all of these calories that's on this meal plan, those carbs are going into his muscles. But for you, they're spiking insulin and obviously causing it to be stored as fat. And, outside of like just sticking to this diet because it works for somebody else, you got to understand that you have gained 10, 12 pounds of fat. You're tired. You could not finish your 5K without walking 3 times, which is not normal. She wasn't energized anymore. She had to take naps during the day. And I'm like, don't violate your personal individuality. Listen to your body, understand that this diet is not working for you. And so that's what I teach people, is to really be self-aware, because that could work perfectly fine for someone else. Michael Phelps was eating 12,000 calories a day. He had to, because he would lose weight if he wasn't. That's because his mitochondria was efficient. His body was burning 6,000 calories. This when he was training for the Olympics. 6,000 calories while he was exercising 8 hours a day. And then his body was burning 6,000 calories a day at rest. So he had a very efficient like metabolism. And so he
He's a
had to
fat
do
burning
that.
machine, isn't he?
Yeah, like crazy. But that's what he had to do. Like, if he gave that plan to somebody else, come on, he doesn't have that plan now, of course. But I try to let people know these fad diets and stuff, they're okay for short term. I want to get into a dress, I want to lose weight, I'm going on a vacation or something like that. Or I just, need to just, I'm carrying too much weight in my body. I need to burn fat really, really quick and I need to drop it off. But at the end of the day, I'm teaching people how to have a diet that they can live with for the rest of their life, and that they can adapt to the best diet in that moment, in that present time for them, that can give them the best results, for their well-being.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, like having something specific and customized for the individual, for the client is
Yeah.
huge, right? And I think a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
times there's a lot of misinformation or like, huh, if Michael Phelps is doing that, maybe I should do
Right.
that too. And it just doesn't work, right? And so
Right.
for those
Right.
people that are not sure about, their diet or their
Yeah.
lifestyle, how to put it all together, how to handle misinformation, contradiction,
Yeah.
contradictory information? Like, how do you navigate your clients through all of this?
Yeah, I just, just making sure that they understand that there are going to be a lot of contradictions because there's a lot of people who get benefits from doing certain things that could harm them. For example, and nothing, I tell my clients that nothing is healthy unless it's healthy for you. Meaning like there's times where some people are like, okay, I'm vegan, vegetables make me feel great. I'm on a raw diet and they are thriving, they are full of energy, it works for them. And then you have somebody else who may try the same thing and say like, I feel kind of bloated, I'm not like energized as much, my brain is not functioning well. And I'll let them know, you don't want to follow something just because you think it's universally healthy. We all have been taught vegetables are universally healthy, but they're not healthy for you. They're causing inflammation in your gut, they're causing you to be bloated, they're causing your brain to not be able to think clear. And so maybe for you, healthier fats, more protein, you have to really pay attention. And there are a lot of contradictions. And that's because people are different. We're all made up very uniquely different. Some people have the ability to burn fat very easily. Other people, they store fat very easily. Some people can build muscles very easily. Other people, it takes them a long time to build muscle. And sometimes it's still hard, even when they're doing everything they're supposed to do, they have to do extra work. And then again, it depends on your hormone levels. There's hormones that's being released that play a role that a lot of people don't talk about. And that creates contradictions because if someone has high levels of estrogen or high levels of insulin or high levels of any type of fat making hormone versus the fat burning hormones, their body is going to function differently. And so there's always going to be contradictions because people are uniquely different and different things work for different people. And I try to make people very, very aware of that because I have people who come to me who are stuck on, well, this is the way that I've been doing things. This is it, and it's like you're sick. So whatever you've been doing, you can't do anymore because it did not get you to a place of well-being. So you have to now be more open-minded to some other ideas about what health looks like for you. I always put that at the end, healthy for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. It sounds like what they need is they need a plan, and
Yeah.
what they need to help implement the plan, they need an expert, right? Whether it's a coach like me or like a doctor like you, like we all need like the best athletes in the world. They're the best for a reason, right? They have
Oh yeah.
the right coaches. They have the right support system and support
Yeah.
network, right? And so I think
Absolutely.
teaming up with you, for those of you out there that struggle with chronic disease, definitely check out Dr. Camillah's profile, her website, get information, contact her because she's had a lot of success helping
Yeah.
people through chronic diseases, right? And so maybe you can share with us, a success story, maybe a client of yours that has, successfully reversed chronic disease.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a ton of them, from like I have cancer patients who's had their cancer go into remission. People who deal with acid reflux, autoimmune diseases, where there's no trace of the symptoms, and we all know that like some of this stuff, we say is there's no cure for it, but nobody really cares if they're not getting the symptoms. Okay, it's just like when COVID happened, like there were people who had COVID. The only problem were the symptoms. If someone had COVID and they absolutely had no symptoms, no one, it was like, I'm fine, I'm okay. And so it's really not necessarily the label, it's those symptoms that start to happen. And if you can reverse some of those symptoms and let people still live a thriving life full of energy, then that's what it's all about. And so that's what's happening with some of these clients. Because I know some people might say, well, I thought there were no cure for this. Or I thought there, you can't reverse autoimmune diseases. Well, you can reverse the symptoms and they can live just as a productive, healthy life, energized life as anybody else. I've had people who had strokes, and, who had cholesterol levels, triglyceride levels of over 2,000. And some people have never heard of that before. Like, I don't know if I had ever heard. I ran into a guy whose triglycerides were over 2,000. I'm like, I didn't even know you could get to 2,000. I would think that, I don't know, you would have a heart attack or something. but being able to reverse those levels all the way down to, the lower hundreds. So there's been so many different success stories. Of course, diabetes, people who A1C are all the way up at 12 and 13, all the way back down to like five, lower fives. And so I've dealt with pretty much any irritable bowel syndrome, gut inflammation, Crohn's disease, all of these different chronic illnesses, arthritis that I've dealt with, where there was a reversal of the symptoms and no pain, and reducing the inflammation completely, reducing the blood, making sure like that there was confirmation through blood work, like to say, hey, what are your levels at right now? And so we're having, all kind of success stories with clients reversing their chronic disease, going from insulin resistant to insulin sensitive, weight loss, losing weight. I don't specialize in weight loss, but that's just part of what happens when they get their bodies back calibrated. And yeah, and we're having some great responses to just the program and the direction of being able to really bring people into wellness. And I've worked with literally thousands of people with dealing with lowering inflammation. And if we can lower the inflammation, then we can help to reverse the chronic disease. So yeah, we're excited at all the success stories that we've been getting, and people are still letting us know even to this day what is taking place, because I'm always collecting data.
Amazing, amazing. So lowering inflammation, irritable bowel syndrome, diabetes, stroke, like all of these things. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you've had a lot of success there. And for all of these, the patients of yours, like you mentioned, the symptoms, like what other obstacles or challenges do these people face?
Well, there's a lot of external obstacles that they face. It could be, trauma, dealing with trauma, dealing with, taking medication. They're dealing with addictions. That's a strong one. Just being addicted to sugar, or even other substances. But I think the biggest obstacle that people have is really just not believing in themselves and not believing that it's possible. And because even just talking to people who and I'm always talking to people who are dealing with chronic disease, and I'm interviewing them whether they know it or not, even if they're not my clients, just to kind of hear their tone of voice and just what they believe about this disease. And you can tell that they have identified with the disease. And I really teach my clients not to identify with anything that does not serve you. And so you can have whatever you have. You can have diabetes, but you don't have to identify with being a diabetic. But the biggest obstacle is the limitations that they have in their heart to believe that they can actually operate in a way that is not identified with the disease that they have. And so I just teach people how to break past those limits and those boundaries that are in their heart, because those limitations are really hidden in the heart. And what happens is, if you start to perform outside of the limitations of your heart, you eventually wind up going back to autopilot and self-sabotaging. And so I try to help them with their self-image, because you're not gonna, like, our self-image like dictates our success and our failure rates. And so I really, people act according to who they are. And so if I can break them past those mental barriers, that's the real obstacle, is really believing that they don't have to identify with this and that this does not define who they are. And the moment I break them past that main obstacle, the other obstacles kind of fall away, because there are these little external things that are happening, that are going on in their life, and that they have to deal with and stuff. But when they rise above understanding how to break those limitations of not being in this level of identification with what they're struggling with or what they're dealing with, then I think they can break free a lot quicker and a lot more easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can really resonate with that. Like a lot of my clients, the clients I serve are weight loss clients,
Oh yeah.
they'll lose 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds physically, but their
Right.
mindset, they look in the mirror, they still see themselves as like
Yeah.
50 pounds overweight. So not only do we have to like, treat them or train them physically, we've got to
Right.
train them mentally as well, right? Their belief,
Right.
addressing their limiting belief, their self-image. And there's a quote that I really, really like, a famous quote that says, believe it until you can achieve it. What I
Oh
like
yeah.
to say is, believe it until you can become it, right?
Oh, that's good. I like that. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. The
Yeah.
mindset is really important, right?
Oh,
Mental
yeah.
health is really important, emotional health really important. So talk to
Yeah.
us more about like emotional health and like, stress management, and if there's a few techniques that you can share with our viewers.
Yeah, so that's a huge part of the journey is emotional health, and I teach about emotional health, stability, and managing stress. And there's different phases of stress. Stress, a lot of people don't understand. Stress is actually good. We need epinephrine. We need our adrenals going. We need that fight or flight mode, but we also need to know how to turn it off, or in a sense, turn on the what you call parasympathetic system, which is the rest and digest system. And so I teach people acute stress, which is dealing with stress in real time through breathing techniques, to be able to calm their system down when the stress is not warranted, when they don't need it. Like, of course, when we go into exercise or when we're under a deadline, we need adrenal to flow. We need that stress to help to get the job done. But there's times where we don't need to be activated. And so I teach that on an acute level. On a medium term level, what I teach people how to do with their stress management is to increase their threshold of stress, because you cannot get away from it. Like life, from the moment you get up in the morning to the moment you go to bed at night, you're dealing with stress. And so a lot of people can't handle stress. And so I try to increase their threshold and their capacity to handle stress. And the way I do this is by really teaching them how to put their physical body under stress, because the body does the same response, whether it's physical or emotional stress. You're going to have the pupil dilations, the increased heart rate, and all of that. Your body's going to do the same thing. So if you can stress your body out physically, and then what I call disassociate the mind from the body is under stress, the body is uncomfortable. If you can disassociate the mind from the body and be comfortable in the uncomfortable, so your state of mind is comfortable even if the body is uncomfortable, through exercise like high intensity interval training, weightlifting, cold therapy, cold showers. Those are ways that you can put the body under stress but learn how to keep the mind at a very stable place. And the practice of that actually helps you when you're actually dealing with stress, whether it's physical or emotional. So when you get angry or something like that, you're able to still practice that art of disassociating the mind, to keep the mind stable and to keep the mind at peace, and to bring on that parasympathetic system through breathing techniques or whatever, even though you're feeling this surge of hormonal stress, whether it's cortisol being released or whatever. And so some of those are some of the practices I use, and I use that with decreasing stress, acute stress, and being able to increase the threshold of medium term stress. And I do this so that they will not enter into chronic stress, because that's the name of the game. The moment you enter into chronic stress is when disease starts to flare up. And if you get to the point where you can't now turn stress off, like when it's time for you to go to bed at night and sleep, and you can't turn off that sympathetic system, that's when the problem starts. And so dealing with it at the acute and the medium levels and being able to manage them at that point can kind of help to make sure that you don't enter into chronic stress. And so that's kind of like some of the journey that I take them through. Of course, emotional health is composed of so many other different things, but stress is definitely one that we really harp on and try to get under in a balanced way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stress impacts everything, right? Impacts our
Yeah.
decisions, it impacts our mood, impacts our
Yep.
lifestyle, impacts our
Yeah.
exercise, our sleep, right? So
Yep.
super important and valuable, that you have all these tools, to help your patients reduce stress.
Oh
Last
yeah.
question for you, Dr. Camila, because I know your time is valuable here. Is for people that are struggling with some kind of chronic disease and they don't believe that it's possible to reverse it, what would you say to them?
Um, I send them to testimonies. I send them to get real like that, because there's nothing that can help convince people more than hearing that someone else has been in your shoes and have overcome this obstacle. And so some people can be skeptical, and if they don't want to believe that other people have done it, then they're just going to stay in the condition that they're in. But the easiest way, to deal with skepticism is to really open them up to the world of people who have overcome this, and to know that it is possible to overcome. and to really help them to understand the truth concerning their conditions, because the skepticism comes from the lies that are being told to themselves. And a lot of times they're just looking at their own actions and seeing what they're doing, and it's causing skepticism in their own heart just from what they're doing and seeing like the outcomes and where they are. And so once they number one see that other people have overcome this, and then number two, they bump into the truth, which is a lot of times that the thing that you think is causing you relief has actually been the source of your pain. So if you're addicted to sugar and you can't stop eating the way a bunch of sugary foods, and or you're addicted to a substance abuse, or you're addicted to alcohol or whatever, you may think that doing that is what causes you relief. So to give it up is a sacrifice. But a lot of people don't know that it's actually the actual drug that has caused the misery. So that when you're not doing the drug, all of a sudden your stress increases, and then it makes you want to now do the same drug or be in the same cycle or eat all of this sugar and all too much dessert or whatever to relieve you. But it's really a cycle, and it's not really relieving you. It's always been the source of your pain. It's the reason why you gain weight. It's the reason why you have, a chronic disease. It's the reason why you can't sleep at night. It's the reason why your energy levels are low. So once they operate in understanding the actual truth that allows people to be set free, they can know, wow, all I need to do really is stop doing this, because this is actually the reason why I'm feeling this. Well, I'm not being relieved by doing it. I'm actually understanding. Someone put it this way, is that, it's like putting on a tight pair of shoes just to take them off for the relief. Don't put the shoes on, and you won't need the relief from this. And once people understand that, I think it's real easy for their skepticism to like go away, to fade away.
Absolutely, absolutely. Super powerful, very, very inspiring. Thanks for joining us today. I think you've given, my audience, my listeners a lot of value, a lot of insights. And so for everyone listening, for everyone watching, and, they want to learn more about you, Dr. Kamilah, where can they find you?
Absolutely. They can go to my website, KamilahStevenson.com, my full name, or they can find me like on Instagram or Instagram at Kamilah Stevenson, or on Facebook under my business name, which is Healthy and Better, at Healthy and Better. And so those are the best ways to be able to reach me. And if they have any questions, they can reach out to me through those sources, and I'll make sure to get some information out to them.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you
Hopefully,
so
you
much for
guys got
having
a lot
me.
of value. Comment below. Show Dr. Kamilah some love. Comment below what was your favorite lesson for today's show, and maybe in the future we can have you back on. And this kind of
Absolutely.
concludes our show for today. So for everyone watching, remember, never give up, stay consistent, and you're one habit away from permanent weight loss. I'll see you guys later.